if there is a superhuman intelligence that worked it all out, in a way that undermines the entire scientific enterprise, because we are, maybe an evolutionary biologist feels this more strongly, the whole enterprise of evolutionary biology is to explain how you get prodigious complexity and design from virtually nothing. I mean, we hand over to physicists when we can go beyond the virtually nothing to the absolutely nothing. But if you start from quite an advanced level, bacteria, and work up to mammals and humans, we have a working theory which we know is true, which explains how you can go from great simplicity to prodigious complexity, and finally to the sort of complexity which is capable of designing things, of creating things, of working out how to do things. Well, if you are suddenly going to insert a designing machine, a creator, an intelligence at the root of the universe, you've just undermined your entire enterprise, because your entire enterprise has been to explain how you get to something complicated enough to do design.
Okay guys, as you've just seen from the clip, it seems like Dawkins is suggesting, or one of the reasons for him denying God seems to be that that somehow the belief in God undermines or would undermine science. I don't really understand where he's going with this, but if I'm trying to process what he's saying here, what I'm getting from this is that, look, science tries to explain, as he says, and we need to understand the difference between the how and the why here. I think it's important, but he seems to suggest that science tries to explain, how we, at least in biology, how we go from simplicity to complexity and design, and therefore if you were to posit God, you would undermine all of this. Now, yes, in a way you would, if you were suggesting, or if you were trying to utilize science and use science to try to explain the how and the why of how things came to be. That's not the role of science. Science is there to try and understand the physical world and explain how things work. Science does not deal with the why. Obviously, if you look at it from the perspective of methodological naturalism, then you can see what he's trying to do here. Obviously, methodological naturalism suggests that you're limited to the physical, therefore you have to try and explain everything via physical causes. But regardless, I don't think that the belief in God undermines science in any way, shape or form, at least not from the Islamic perspective, because what we believe, or our belief, is that God created everything, and he created processes and things that he put into place, which obviously he is in control of everything ultimately, but there are processes that are taking place and that are resulting in things that happen. Therefore, life, for example, could have evolved in the way that science understands it, maybe in a different way, we don't know. Obviously, I'm not making this distinction here between human life and other forms of life. That's a topic for another video, and maybe for you guys to go check out Darwinian Delusions, the channel, where Sabur goes into a lot more detail regarding these topics. But point being that God has created things, and he has created processes through which and via which things emerge. So if you take biology, for example, the belief in God does not undermine biology. If anything, from the Islamic perspective, the physical world and the way it's created is there to allow us to appreciate the creation of God, right? For us to see the signs of God, so we can see his creative power through creation, and see how he's created this magnificent universe, which should allow us and lead us to him, to worship him, to be grateful to him. As God says in many places in the Quran, chapter 3 verse 190, where God says, the Arabic, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَةٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ, that indeed in the creation of the heavens and the earth, the creation of the cosmos essentially, and the alternation, the change in the night and day, here signifying what I believe is the function of this universe and the way it works, other than just highlighting its creation. And God says that in these things there are clear signs for people. Obviously, which people? The people of insight, the people of intelligence, people of lub, purity, this clarity of thinking. So science, if anything, is an amazing, magnificent tool which allows us to appreciate God and be grateful to Him and to be in awe of Him, because we reflect over His creation and we can really appreciate what He has created. And I believe this was what the early scientists, as he mentions at the beginning of that clip, the early scientists understood. And many people have written about this, that what drove many of the early scientists to be involved in the sciences was the understanding that we live in an ordered universe that's been created by a higher power, and it's ordered, and therefore we can study it and we can understand it, right? So that the belief in God, if you really understand it, at least from the Islamic perspective, does not undermine science in any way, shape or form. It actually gives science, if you like, validity, from the perspective that we can make sense of an ordered universe, we can make sense of a rational mind which has the ability to understand this ordered universe, and we can then therefore engage in the science to try and understand the world that we live in, and through this appreciate the creative power of God, appreciate our Creator and draw closer to Him. And I think this is something very beautiful, something maybe Dawkins doesn't recognize, doesn't understand, because he seems to have the view that, that science somehow can explain everything, and that science does away with the belief in God in some way, shape or form, and that if you were to posit God, that somehow undermines science. He has some very sort of confused ideas regarding these topics. So hopefully this clarifies some things, at least for the people that follow him and take him as an authority, which he is in his field, but take him as a general authority for life. So hopefully this was beneficial. Till next time, take care.